Hey y'all, it's Stephen Van Kampen-Lewis, and today I want to talk a little bit about watering and fertilizing orchids, specifically Catasetums this time of year. Of course, it's early October, so many of you are winding down your watering and your fertilizing for the Catasetums. I'm not quite there yet, so I want to talk a little bit about what I do. My growing season is a little longer than basically everybody who's north of me. So what I'm doing now might not translate. You might already be doing this. But Richard Lawton actually asked me, hey, what are you doing for your fertilizer? I think he said he's doing something like 550 parts per million worth of nitrogen. And so I don't know how often that is, but I do a lot less, but I'm fertilizing every single watering, and for most of the summer, I fertilize and water every single day. So there's a conversion factor that isn't making that comparison, sort of an apples to apples or oranges to oranges comparison. It's more like apples to oranges. But basically, what I do, and I'm looking over here. I'll show you my setup of how I water and fertilize. It's from a hose. And then I'll talk about what I'm doing now, and then what I'll do in a month, and then I will talk and then I'll show you some of what's happening with the Catasetums real quick, because I did a Catasetum update last week, so you don't really need to see a whole lot. But basically, so I get my fertilizer to being about between 25 and 50 parts per million. But again, I'm doing that every single day. And there's a water well in the bottom of my Catasetums, so they're holding that fertilizer water. Plus, to make it even more complicated, I have Jim's Purely Organic, which is this sort of powder that I put in these little baskets. And I'll show you a picture here, but this powder that I put in these baskets, when it gets wet, it turns into this like brick, and then it slowly dissolves over time. So I don't actually know how many parts per million that's contributing to my Catasetums. So again, my apologies. This discussion isn't going to be as like accurate and as scientific as I'd like. I guess I grow my orchids as more of an art. I guess I'm the kind of person who's in the kitchen just sort of eyeballing the ingredients as they're making the recipe, rather than measuring them out. Although I suspect my wife would disagree. But anyway, let me get the camera turned around and show you how I fertilize, what I'm fertilizing with, and then I'll show you some more stuff about what I'm going to do next month, and then show you the little Catasetum fertilizer basket with the Jim's Purely Organic inside of it. And hopefully that helps you figure out what you're going to do for your fall sort of Catasetum wind down of watering and fertilizing. Behold my fertilizing system, and some overgrown grass because I just don't feel like cutting. And in case you're wondering, every time I have to cut down all these sunflower stalks, I stack them up there, let them dry out, and then put them in the shredder. So it's a bit of a mess, but anyway, so this is my setup, right? So this is the bucket where I mix my fertilizer. Then I have that blue cap there. That is a Dram fertilizer mixer. The white dealy here coming off the faucet, that is a calcium inhibitor. And I'll do a quick zoom in there in a second. And basically the calcium inhibitor, as you can imagine, helps to bring my calcium levels down. Here in Central Texas, it's like liquid rock is what comes out of our faucets. So to bring some of that calcium down, I add that. Now my fertilizer is this stuff. This is the best. So Ray Barcalow and another gentleman whose name I'm totally spacing on, my apologies, created K-Lite fertilizer. They started with MSU fertilizer, and by the way, MSU is not designed for orchids. It's designed for dirt plants, like you see there, and then actually made this more relevant to orchids. So this is what I like to use Ray is a much more scientific fertilizer kind of guy, and he's got all kinds of numbers and values. But for me, I focus on this. So, you know, this fertilizing system has to work for my Catasetums and my Cattleyas and everybody else. So really, that's why I add the Jim's Purely Organic to the Catasetums, because they need more fertilizer than my Cattleyas. If I was fertilizing my whole collection with what I do for my Catasetums, I don't think things would go well. So, like I said, I try to get my parts per million of nitrogen between 25 and 50. And for me, that translates into 5.5 tablespoons into that bucket. Now this bucket is almost empty. What I will do is I will mix this up and all the way up to about here with water, and this basically lasts me the month. So this is a month of fertilizer water here. I'm towards the end. This is the dram hose, and dram, I don't know if you can see, it says flow there, but basically for this particular setup you take 15 times your regular concentration. So according to the instructions here, you know, if I was just to mix this in a regular fertilizer or a watering container, I would mix between 1/8 of a teaspoon per gallon and 1/3 of a teaspoon per gallon to get the concentration I want. So that's really small, right? I mean, a teaspoon's like a little teeny bit, and then I'm taking fractions of that per gallon, which is a couple of liters, of course. And instead, I'm making 5.5 tablespoons and mixing it in here. So this is a super ultra concentrated mix. It gets in here, it mixes with this, with the regular water, and then goes out the hose end. And then I dump it on my plants just about every single day when temperatures are above 95 degrees for most of the summer. That's, you know, June through, you know, middle of September. Even though temperatures are very hot now, over 95 degrees, still looks like that's ending for the year finally this week. But I'm not going to water every single day because the length of time that it's the temperature's above 95 is not that long this time of year. It's a couple of hours at most. Whereas in July, say, you know, I have temperatures above 95 degrees for 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 hours per day. So that dries everything out quickly. You know, having up temperatures that high for an hour or two a day doesn't dry things out nearly as fast. Oh, this is my calcium inhibitor. I just buy this off of Amazon. I think you can buy the dram from Amazon as well, and then just a hose. And then so what I'll do is when I fertilize, this automatically sucks up the water and sends that out the other end. Now let me show you, before I show you the actual Catasetums and the Jim's Purely Organic, I want to say I'll do this one more time. So that'll get me fertilizer through October, and then I'm done fertilizing all of my plants for the rest of the year. And I won't fertilize them until I get them back outside again, probably in very early April is when they'll go back outside and they'll start being fertilized again. So I don't water my plants, any of them, any of my Cattleyas or any of them, for a significant part of the year, and they do just fine. Now let's go check out the Catasetums. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time looking at the Catasetums because I did that last week, but I do want to show you, you know, what this looks like. This is the Jim's Purely Organic, and depending on the size of the pot, so like this one will have a couple of these. You know, I'll fill this up in early April, and then I'll fill it up again usually in July, and then that gets me the extra fertilizer I need to fertilize the Catasetums basically all year long. So of course what will happen is this will continue to fertilize slightly even when I stop fertilizing next month, and then I will wind down. So in early November I'll have no additional fertilizer going in, just these little baskets, whatever's left in those, and that's it, and that seems to be fine. So then I'll have basically no fertilizer or very little fertilizer through the month of November, and then December is when the faucet I really dial back. And then by the middle to late December, everything's done. There's no water. Nobody gets any water, of the Catasetums. Cattleyas will still get water, but the Catasetums do not. And I do want to show quick, I've got some flowers open over there. Let me go show you those. So, these are the green hooded females that Fred jokingly says you get when you give your Catasetums excellent care. And there they are in all of their glory. And what's interesting, I don't know if you can see it, probably not. There's a caterpillar in this one. So after I turn this off, I'm going to have to get my finger in there and squish it. I've never seen a caterpillar eating my Catasetum flowers before, but here we are. Also, Denticulatum first bloom, starting to pop open, sending out a new spike. Another first bloom, just starting to open, especially here. And if you notice the colors, they're going to be your sort of darker standard Denticulatum, whereas this one is quite a bit lighter. So I'm hoping for a really light colored one here and a typical or a really dark one over there. Anyway, that is my quick and dirty discussion of watering and fertilizing this group from basically October, November, and into December. Let me know if you have any questions, of course, and hopefully you're having a great weekend. See ya.